our MedTech Innovator info session. So this is our third, I believe, info session this year. For those of you interested in applying to the program, thank you for joining us today to learn a little bit about us, what we do, how we can support medical device companies and digital health and diagnostics, and how we can help you. So this is a great opportunity. We have a lot of people with us today, and I'll talk about this a little bit in a second. We've invited a few people that we think can give you a really good idea of what MedTech Innovator is, how we operate, and why you want to be a part of this. So first and foremost, Nicole Black, our host. She's our program director for the MedTech Innovator program. She will be leading the webinar today. Hi, Nicole. Today we have 4 guests with us. This is a very unique information session, and I'll explain why in a minute. First and foremost, we have 2 alumni that have been part of the MedTech Innovator program and are joining us today to share their experience with you. We really think this is a key moment and really an important part of this information session is the ability to hear from our alumni that have been through the process of selection, have been through the program, and have moved on post-program and are now part of our alumni network. You will hear a lot more from them today. So with us today is Satya, the CEO of IDAR Health. Hi, Satya. Thank you so much for joining today. And Ellington, the CEO of Sanavi Labs. Hi, Ellington. Thanks for joining us. Also today here with us are 2 very special guests. Stephanie Trop, the director of Maryland Department of Commerce. Thank you, Steph, for joining us today. And Martha Wang, she's the associate director at the Fischel Institute for Biomedical Devices, also in Maryland. Now, it's not a coincidence. They're all from Maryland here, even our alumni. The reason they're all here today, we have been partnering for a couple of years now with the Maryland Department of Commerce as part of our selection process. So one of our pitch events, which Nicole will talk about later, will be held in Maryland at the University of Maryland. And so you'll hear a lot more about this, how we communicate and collaborate, with the local ecosystem in Maryland, and how we bring everyone together for our pitch event. So without further ado, I think, Nicole, if you skip to the next slide, I think we can jump in, and just a quick reminder for everyone, deadline. We have January 15 is our application deadline. And so you'll hear a lot more about the program today. If you have questions, we'll leave time at the end to talk about the applications and the program. But importantly, I want everyone to remember we have 3 programs. You could be a fit for every one of them. If you're here, you're probably applying for the MedTech Innovator or MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific program. We'll talk more about what's the focus of each of these programs shortly. We also have our BioTools Innovator program open for applications right now. All of our programs have the January 15th deadline, so be sure to apply before the deadline. And so I'll hand it over to Nicole now, who can start telling you more about the program. Nicole, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Isla, and thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. Whether you heard about this via email or you've known about MedTech Innovator for a while, just so happy to have you here. So I'm gonna be going through the content a little bit quickly, just because we have covered this in some previous webinars. Most of this information is on our website as well, and we want to hear from our fantastic guests. So I work primarily with the U.S. MedTech Innovator program. When I say U.S., about a third of our cohort is actually international companies as well. So if you're international and wondering, do I have to be based in the US? The answer is no. It's almost completely remote, except for a few in-person events we're going to talk about. So our mission here at MedTech Innovator is to really improve human health by accelerating the growth of these companies like you all that are transforming our healthcare system. So this includes medical devices, digital health, and diagnostics as well. So who has been through our program so far? More than 700 companies are now part of our alumni network. And of this, many of these are very successful as well, with 96% of these still being in business or acquired. These companies have led to almost $9 billion in follow-on funding, leading to 48 acquisitions to date and 350 products on the market and FDA approvals and clearances. So really great track record of these companies having been through MedTech Innovator. And as Paul Grand, our CEO, likes to say, we are like the graduate school of incubators. So if you're thinking like, we're a little bit later stage, we've already raised, a few million in funding, or maybe even up to 100 million in funding, you are still eligible to apply, and there are still resources, which we'll talk about later, that you can get out of the program. We do separate our companies into early and mid-stage tracks. So if you're, early stage company, maybe just barely raising a seed round, maybe you have some grant funding, from an academic context, up to around 15 million, you're considered part of our early stage cohort. And then more than that is our mid-stage cohort, which is about a third of our companies in this. And so, as I mentioned, I really want to hear from our fantastic guests that are here today. Here's some examples of companies that have been through the program. And so I want to turn this over first to Satya to introduce himself a little bit more and what they do at Adar Health. And then we'll hear from Ellington about Sanavi.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining this meeting. It's fantastic to represent Adar Health and also represent Maryland in a way. I'm Satya. I'm the founder and CEO of Adar Health. We are a health technology and data science company. As a part of our solution, we built a medical device, which is our moat. It's a small handheld device. It's more like a breathalyzer. The user actually breathes into the device, and it measures around 12 health parameters in under a minute. Measures temperature, heart rate, ECG, lung functions, and many. We're probably the first FDA cleared medical device with maybe 12 parameters. And it's also interesting, we were part of the 2020 cohort, and right when we also submitted to the FDA, right when there was COVID. So it was one of the most interesting and exciting times everyone faced, right? For us, we were part of that during that time. Right now, we are primarily using our device as well as our platforms for physicians, patients, and nurses to monitor patients in long-term care facilities. But happy to chat a little bit more about the company later.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Satya. Ellington, what about you guys? And what's some background on Sanavi, and why did you guys decide to apply to MedTech Innovator?
Yeah, thanks so much, Nicole. So, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Ellington West, CEO and founder of Sanavi Labs. So, Sanavi Labs, we are a surprise, medical device and software company. We're harnessing the power of AI to transform the way we detect, diagnose, and manage respiratory diseases. So, we like to think of ourselves as kind of like the Shazam for your body. So, we have this device, Felix. You place it on your chest. It listens to the sound of your heart, listens to the sound of your lungs, analyzes those sounds, and then shares that data with care teams anywhere in the world. We started it with a global health capacity or with that focus, but we are really now, I think, focused all over the world. So we are a global health company, and we're proud of that. Let's see, why did we join MedTech Innovator? Why wouldn't we? It was the best and most awesome experience for me personally. And I'm excited to talk a little bit more about my experience, the people that I was able to meet, and then also what the support of the state of Maryland means to us as well. Sometimes you just have to be fully supported because medical devices are hard. It's really, really hard work. So communities around you, I think, are the building blocks of success. So I'm so happy to be here this morning and happy to be an open book with any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you so much, Ellington. And great reminder as well, if you guys have questions, we're going to try to save the last 20 minutes for a Q&A session. So on general program things, on Ellington, Satya's background or things they mention, or later for Steph and Martha, please put those in the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll try to get to those. But as you can see here, great diversity in the companies that have been through the program. We tend to see a lot, in the cardiology space, gastro space, 3D printing, materials science as well, more like platform technologies that make it in, as well as more digital health and data analytics companies that are coming into the cohort. So I would say, I get this question a lot, what makes a company a good candidate? Number one, if you have a technology that is either patentable or protected in some way, something that makes you very unique and something that only you can contribute. And number two, if you're impacting patient health. So if you check yes to both of those, I would say definitely apply and start your application as soon as you can, because we're going to keep you in the loop on program updates. If there's date changes or things like that, if we have your application, we'll have all your information and can, keep you posted. So definitely don't delay. It's now less than a month, I think exactly 4 weeks or so until applications are due. So definitely start those sooner than later. I want to mention some of our partners that are involved with MedTech Innovator, which are such an important part of our ecosystem here. And so I think this is something that makes MedTech Innovator very unique, is that it's not just our program staff, but so many people that come together from around the world to support our MedTech companies. And so we really bucket these partners into 4 main groups. So we have strategic corporate partners, which I'll talk about in a minute. These are large companies like Johnson & Johnson, Dexcom, BD, that actually are in the medtech space themselves and can help you think about, strategies for market access and beyond. We have our service provider partners, which can help with, clinical trial planning, designing your device, maybe scaling up manufacturing, getting your documentation together. And a lot of these providers have donated in-kind mentoring hours as well to help you guys during the course of the program. We partner with a variety of conferences, which are very important for exposure, getting you out there into the world. And so, firstly, we'll be at the summit is at the AdvaMed conference. This is our sort of final culmination pitch event where all of our companies will come together and showcase their technologies on stage alongside our partners. So this is going to be in early October in San Diego. We'll talk about that in a minute, but there's more that we partner with for alumni opportunities, such as Device Talks, Wilson Sonsini, MedTech Strategist as well. And then finally, societies. So we have 3 specialty tracks that we'll offer. And so you can see those on the right here. So our heart and brain track with the American Heart Association, our military track with MTech, which is the Medical Technology Enterprise Consortium, and then our plastic surgery track with the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. So if your technology fits into any of these categories, really encourage you to check those boxes during the application process to get considered for admission into those tracks. So each of those tracks will accept 5 companies that, in addition to the normal program resources, will benefit from society expertise, from clinicians and experts in these spaces, and special conference and presentation opportunities at these society meetings as well. So definitely consider that. So have a bunch of our partners listed on this slide, but really, I want to hear from Satya and Ellington. Which of these partners did you guys work with during the program and in a mentorship capacity? So Satya, maybe we'll start with you if you want to share a bit about some of these mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, mentors were one of the core part of this program, right? We had some amazing mentors, specifically from Jason, from Fujikura, and also Maxim Ventures. We worked with Shailendra, who was from Maxim Ventures, and I think both these opportunities were very relevant for us, specifically from a medical device perspective. Maxim Ventures had a lot of early exits, and also they had like a lot of medical device companies on their portfolio, and they have seen the scale of everything from scale company all the way to multi-million-dollar companies. So it was throughout the process we enjoyed working with them, and from Fujikura perspective, we worked with the US team, but we also got connected with a lot of different players within their Japanese team. And also it was one of the primary reasons why we decided to also find opportunities within Japan, and now we are looking into PMDA in Japan. And it started off with working with Fujikura at that point.
Yeah, thanks, Satya. Really insightful to hear all the different types of partners you've worked with. Ellington, any thoughts on this or general, mentorship experiences that you guys had in the program?
I think that we were really strategic about the way that we wanted to engage with our partners, because I think that there are 2 things that are important to recognize. it's so wonderful to have access to partners. It's how you work that time with your partners that really matters the most. So at Sanofi, we decided to kind of break our responsibilities between two people in leadership. So it was me and one of our head chief business development officer who really handled a lot of our partnerships positioning. So they spent about 30 hours, I would say, a week focusing on how to develop and deepen the partnerships that we had available to us through MedTech Innovator. The ones that I'd like to highlight, definitely Wilson and Cincini, amazing attorneys. I highly recommend. They are so thoughtful when it comes to working with startups, and they really helped us address a couple of things on our cap table, but also as we were working through a merger that we're still working through, they were absolutely dynamic in helping us traverse that process. I will also say that Sunrise Labs was dynamic in just helping us think through Felix 2.0. When you think about technology and obsolescence that comes with the development of innovative pieces of hardware and software, but more specifically hardware, it's really important to always be thinking 5 years ahead in your strategy of development. And Sunrise really helped us not only shape our strategy for now, but for tomorrow. And I deeply appreciated that. And of course, our Johnson & Johnson partnership. We were already a J&J portfolio company, but our relationship with and through MedTech Innovator actually allowed us to solidify a deal with the VA. So it really is about how you work the partners, because they're willing, they have dedicated hours, but you really want to get bang for your buck. And I think time is the greatest asset here, and it's how you dedicate and where you dedicate that.
Thank you so much, Ellington. Wonderful to see all the different types of partners you both engaged with. And I think, that's the main message here is you're not alone. And that's the great part of being part of our ecosystem is all of the partners that we have supporting you, also the other companies that are supporting you in this MedTech ecosystem, which we'll talk about in a minute. A bit more about, some focus areas for companies if you're thinking about applying. These are just examples. Again, just answer the questions of, do you have a unique technology? Are you impacting patient health? If you say yes to both of those, you're in. But these are just some examples of some company categories that have been through the program in the past. Of course, we get a lot of physical devices. Those are, really the bread and butter of a lot of our corporate partners, but have been seeing a lot more interest now on the digital health side as well, workflow optimization for customers, and indeed a lot of our success stories. So for example, Explorer, which OR for the operating room surgical, which is founded by Jennifer Freed, went through an acquisition, and now she is on her second startup, which also went through MedTech Innovator this year, Flow Medical, and they were one of our value prize winners. So we see companies continuing to come back with new innovations as well in different fields. This is our program timeline. So I really want to emphasize this January 15th deadline for you all. Make sure, again, you're starting this application as soon as possible. We're going to be having our pitch events from March to May with a virtual option. We really encourage you to go in person if possible. This is a great opportunity for networking and meeting other folks in the ecosystem. We're going to be notifying our cohort in late May and then kicking off the program officially in June at our Innovator Summit. So this will bring together our entire cohort of about 65 companies alongside the companies in the other two programs that Ayelet mentioned at the beginning, our APAC program and our BioTools program, and our partners. So you'll get to meet all of them, have some great workshops where you'll learn a lot in addition to the networking opportunities. And then that will kick off our actual accelerator program, which is a combination of mentoring through these relationships we just talked about, as well as some very useful webinars that are really tailored to the interests of our cohort. We also have, partner expert consult sessions. So you can chat, more informally with some of these partners as well, and other opportunities and workshops along the way. And again, this will culminate at the MedTech conference in San Diego in October, where we have our showcases and also final pitch events for our prizes. These are our in-person events. So if you're thinking, what should I be having in mind right now if I make it in to block off in my calendar? These are the dates. So the first is the pitch events. As I mentioned, please try to attend one of these in-person ones if possible. You'll really get a lot out of it. So we are going to be having one in LA. That's our West Coast event. College Park, Maryland. So looking forward to hearing more from Steph and Martha on this. And we're excited to partner with them this year. And Dublin, Ireland as well. So definitely check these out and mark on your application your order of preferences. So if you're based in Europe, for example, Dublin is where a lot of our international companies end up heading. Secondly, our Innovator Summit, which I mentioned in Mountain View, California at the end of June, and then the MedTech Conference. So these are the important dates to keep in mind for those in-person opportunities. And so with that, I want to turn this over to Steph and Martha, who are going to share a bit more with us about their work through the Maryland Department of Commerce and the Fischel Institute for Biomedical Devices and what they do to support startups in the ecosystem. So Steph, love to hear from you, and maybe just give me a thumbs up when you want the next slide.
Good. Great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole and Ayelet. We're really excited to be here and just even more thrilled to continue working with MedTech Innovator to partner with you and have you come back to Maryland this year, because we just had such a fantastic experience when you came 2 years ago. So we're really thrilled to host you again. So I don't want to take too much time. I just want everyone on the call to know whether you are in Maryland or you're not in Maryland yet. As our governor says, we've got Marylanders and future Marylanders, that Maryland is where MedTech happens. And you can see that here with just two of our fantastic startups from ADAR and Sanavi, and our fantastic people in Satya and Ellington. And you'll hear from Martha in a couple minutes, who is just an amazing resource as well. See lots of excitement. We're really thrilled to have brought successful startups to pitch at MedTech Innovator every year for the last several years. And you even saw a picture of Satya demoing his device in that last slide as well. So why is it such a great place for MedTech? So just really broadly, our geographic location, really easy access to the East Coast, to Europe, and really importantly, beneficial for our companies within Maryland. We have all of the federal agencies that you need to get a device on the market. FDA is here, Center for Medicare and Medicaid is here. So that is really unique. We also have more than twice the number of federal labs and military labs as any other state. So they make great partners as well. We have a super talented, educated STEM workforce with lots of jobs in the life sciences, including MedTech, which I'll show you in a second. Our companies and our institutions are really successful here in Maryland at securing federal funding, and we also have a lot of financial funding support from the state. And we're really strong on the innovation side, in particular in Maryland, with all of our incubators and accelerators, universities, especially including leading HBCUs, which the state really values diversity and supporting that and supporting underrepresented founders. Go to the next slide. So my role, I'm the Director of Life Sciences with the Maryland Department of Commerce. My role is to support all of the life sciences industry, including biotech sectors, all of our wraparound service providers, MedTech, and digital health. And these are really our two sectors that have been taking off just like around the country and around the world. And we're really excited to be supporting the growth of that and seeing it happen. And just to show our companies here in Maryland in the medical device space are really building solutions across all different types of medical devices. You can go to the next slide. So my job with Commerce is to support the growth of our industry, and we do that in a lot of different ways by providing through us or through other state agencies or partners, various types of funding vehicles. I just want to highlight here one of our signature programs specific to med device and biotech is we have an investment incentive tax credit. And what that does is it helps Maryland biotechnology companies bring on private investment, because your investors will get refunded a portion of their investment. So you can give them a return on their investment right away. Next slide. In addition to funding, we actually offer a whole slew of business development support services. So we do counseling one-on-one and on scale with our companies all the time to help connect you to other resources to help you export, connect to mentors, help with site selection, especially if you're looking to locate here, expand here, make connections, and so on. We can move on. So keeping that in mind, we are really looking forward to meeting you, whether you are looking for partners to help do your business in Maryland. I can help you find those. We will host the MedTech Innovator East Coast Road Tour, as you heard about, as part of our prototype Maryland MedTech Week that we're developing next year. So that will be held at College Park. You'll hear more about that from Martha. And also in Baltimore, we have a whole week of events planned that you can participate in. So if you're interested in keeping track of those events, you can email the address there, fischelinstitute@umd.edu. If you've got questions for me about Maryland, there's my email. And that QR code will just take you to a really broad overview of what's going on in MedTech in Maryland.
Thank you so much, Steph. Super comprehensive. And I hope that you guys that are based in Maryland check out these other events. And if you're invited to pitch at our Maryland pitch event, that you attend these as well. And if you're selected for that, we will remind you of these opportunities so that you can get extra bang for your travel bucks if you're coming in town and checking these things out. So now I'll turn it over to Martha, who's going to talk about the Fischel Institute for Biomedical Devices and what they do to help launch new products into the world.
Thanks, Nicole. And thank you again for including us today. We've had the opportunity to work with MTI now for many years through both our work through the pitch show, but then also through our pediatric device innovation product. And that has been such a unique experience being able to see these devices that are able to support children get to market through the help of the MTI program. So we're thrilled to be continuing the partnership and being able to actually host the event for the East Coast Roadshow this year. We're really excited. So a little background about the Fischel Institute. Steph has given such a great overview of the state's resources. One of the things that we do in the Fischel Institute is work really closely with the Department of Commerce and Steph's team to support companies. And Ellington, I think you summarized it really nicely when you said we're not alone, right? Like we believe in the Fischel Institute that like we work together to increase the ecosystem for medtech development. We want to make sure that we support companies and technologies to really improve our region. And we do that through a number of different things, both from bringing students to the point where they can become great employees at your company to helping you figure out whether or not you got an idea that's going to make it all the way to market. So we love being part of the larger ecosystem. And I just wanted to share a little bit about the Fischel Institute because I don't want to take away time from questions. But if you ever need to reach me, my email is just martha@umd.edu. Great. Thanks, Nicole. That's perfect timing. So a little background, Bob Fischel is our benefactor. He realized many years ago, he developed one of the first drug-eluting stents that run on the market and discovered this concept that like we have so many medical technologies that don't reach to market because we didn't have any institutes that actually focus on it, right? We have bioengineering, we have medical devices that are done through electrical engineering or even some in chemistry, right? So we have all this great engineering concepts. And now even with like software as a medical device, we have all these great ideas, but we didn't have institutes that actually addressed it specifically. So crazy enough, Bob is actually a physicist by background. He doesn't have a medical device background, and this is what he, has realized that we were missing. So he put up a large amount of his estate to support developing the Fischel Institute because he realized that this was really important that we do the testing, the ideation, the design, the whole process to make sure that whatever we're making is, a device that must seamlessly interact with the human body. Okay, next slide. So that's where we came from and what makes us special. And Steph, you kind of already highlighted this, so I don't really need to go into many details, but the University of Maryland, we are located in 2 locations, both up at the School of Medicine and then at the University of Maryland College Park, which is our flagship campus. And then we are surrounded by the most amazing resources, both from the federal technology development and as well as educational technology development support. So with all of this, we're able to work with like CMNS and get reimbursement. We're able to work closely with the FDA where we have a lot of collaborations in place, and I'll talk a little quickly about that later. But really, I just wanted this slide to show to you, part of our partners in our region and why we are so focused on increasing med tech and our development of these technologies in our region is because we're able to really rely on some of these great resources that we're physically co-located with. All right, next slide. So the Fischel Institute, we have a wide range of interests. It's actually funny because when you said in the beginning, you said, medical devices, digital health and diagnostics. Well, that's kind of what this slide is here. We always talk about small molecules, biologics, and devices. If you are interested in it, I have an engineer that can help you. Or if I'm not a good fit, I have a wonderful set of ecosystems that I can point you in the right direction. And that's one of the best things about working for a university system is we're a little bit more agnostic because we want to see everybody succeed in developing their technologies. All right, next slide. Great. And then this is a visual understanding of like, we help people through all these different parts of the process. Whether you're going from, assessing whether or not your idea is okay. Do you have market space? Can you go do that go, no go assessment? All the way to the post-market commercialization. So making sure that you have, your device design, validation, verification, clinical trial testing, all the way to making sure that your regulatory support is done appropriately and as expeditiously as possible, which is always a fun part of it, right? All right. And then what makes us able to do this and why we're able to also create a lot of those partnerships in our region is that we actually are a Center for Excellence in Regulatory Science and Innovation, which is a grant that's funded by the FDA. So we're one of the few locations that has a partnership with the FDA, and we're able to do this because our executive director, Bill Bentley, is one of the PIs for this grant. And so pretty much the FDA will come to us and say, hey, we're really interested in this technology. We see it coming onto the market. We don't really understand it. How are we going to regulate it? Which is really critical in biotech and medtech, where we're coming up with all these great ideas surrounding medical tech development, but maybe the FDA hasn't seen it before, right? So they're able to come to us because we are not the sponsor. It's not our product. And they can say, hey, do you have any labs that already do this type of research? And if we don't, then they can say, well, we'd like to sponsor them. So they provide us small grants. And we actually are the facilitator for these interactions, both with the FDA and the companies, or we do the research ourselves. So we do a lot of different things through CIRSE. It's a really great opportunity. We offer workshops. For the FDA, they say, hey, we want to learn more about this type of medical device, and we'll say, that's great. We'll find a bunch of those companies and we'll host a roundtable discussion. So the FDA regulators can have a discussion on an offsite location here at the University of Maryland in College Park, and we're able to have that workshop together. So we've been really lucky. We've been doing this for years through our work at UMB, and that's our School of Medicine partners. They have a wonderful team there that has supported starting up a lot of different companies. This is some of their licensing and startup portfolios, so you can have an understanding of the type of projects that we've worked on in the past. And then next slide. And then great. And then the last thing that we do in the Shell Institute is we actually help a lot of international partners. That's one of our strongholds. As Steph mentioned, there are tons of resources for companies who want to move to the US and specifically actually develop their business within Maryland. And so we work closely with those programs to say, okay, do you need a soft landing, right? Like, how are we going to get you so that you have the technology that you want to bring to the US? Also, if you already have a device that is being evaluated and supported by a regulatory agency in your home country, how do we assess what you've submitted for those regulatory submissions? And what are you missing if you want to get through the FDA regulatory process? So we have the opportunity to work both with our colleagues at the Department of Commerce and Steph to actually see economically what makes sense. And then also, how are you logistically going to go through those procedures? So the Shell Institute is excited because we love working with MTI. We love sending companies to participate and supporting them. We're going to be having the East Coast pitch show happening part of our Maryland MedTech Week. Steph, I love that slide you had. And we're going to kick off our Maryland MedTech Week with actually our Maryland Summit. So for any companies who are interested in coming and learning more about Maryland, the ecosystem we have here and the technology, that will be on Tuesday, immediately preceding the pitch competition. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity today. That was so lovely to hear about all the different things we've been doing together.
Awesome.
Thank you, Martha and Stephanie. I'll just jump in to say that all of those things that you see here, that's part of the reason we are coming back to Maryland. And part of this is having all of these expertise in the local ecosystem as part of the pitch event. This year, as you've heard from Martha and Steph, there's also, unique opportunities for those of you, even if you're not invited to pitch, you're able to participate in this week and gain a lot of knowledge, a lot of connections. And so you'll hear more from us with an invitation, even if you're not invited to pitch. But if you are, this will be also a great opportunity to interact with all these experts in the ecosystem as part of the judging process. So great to be working with you, and we're looking forward to the event.
Definitely, it'll be a great time. And since we have Ellington and Satya as well, who are from Maryland, I'd love to hear from them. Just maybe a couple quick resources that they've utilized being in the state of Maryland. Satya, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Stephanie is here as well. So we did a lot of partnership with Maryland Department of Commerce. The BITTC program, what she mentioned, is phenomenal for investors who invest in Maryland companies. We probably got like over, I would say, 1.5 or $2 million to our investors back already, which is a huge advantage. Not a lot of companies know about it. It's a good program to leverage, and and also there's a lot of other investors that are coming up right now in Maryland, which are really a good sign for us over the past few years, and also like a lot of medical device companies, right? So we've done a lot of, I would say, effort in the back end to like at least get to this point, and also the geographic location, right? So I went for two FDA meetings. It took me like 30 minutes to drive versus people flying in from different parts of the world. And NIH, NSF, you name it, even CMS is right here. So there are a lot of things where we were able to exchange, and the best of it was Maryland had this partnership with pharma companies and other bigger organizations where, because we are coming through Maryland, they actually sit down and give you some time to and also mentor you. So we leverage such programs where we had opportunities to be mentored by major companies like AstraZeneca and others in the region.
Thank you, Satya. Ellington, what about you? What have you enjoyed about being here?
I mean, there's not much to add. I think that Satya did such a beautiful job. The truth is that the thoughtfulness that went into curating our ecosystem is really paramount. I think that I initially struggled thinking about this medical device company on the East Coast. How do we do it? How will it be? How will it thrive? And I think that the collective leadership in the state of Maryland said we have to make this a nurturing environment for our companies. And so we're going to bring and focus on private-public partnerships in a very unique and innovative way. So the very first check that my company received came from the state of Maryland. And when we continue to fundraise and we think about how we navigate this space, the amount of support, the programs that have been intentionally created to then support us and find funding, especially, and I think that everyone on this call has to acknowledge what happened, you know, in the last 24 months to 3 years from a funding perspective. It was really, really difficult. And to have your state as a partner roll up their sleeves and say, we're going to kick down doors and we're going to walk through them with you is so unique. And I feel so fortunate. And then when I look at the talent that I've been able to acquire on my team, the affordability, their domain expertise, it's unmatched. And then lastly, the community that I can call anyone whose face you can see on this screen right now. And I know that they will answer, they will support me, and that they also know that they can count on me to support them. And I think that, again, going back to the universal theme of not being alone and having support is key. And that definitely thrives and lives here in Maryland.
So beautifully put, Ellington. Thank you so much. And thank you to Martha and Steph as well for sharing those words of wisdom. And if you guys are interested in learning more again about the Maryland Department of Commerce, reach out to Steph. For the Fischel Institute, reach out to Martha, and they'll get you more resources on that. And I'm sure we're all wanting to move to Maryland right about now. But bigger picture, stepping back, even if you're not in Maryland, these are resources for all of our MedTech Innovator companies. So we touched on these a little bit at the beginning, but I want to reiterate again, this is just one example of the great partnerships we have in MedTech Innovator. Our partnerships lead us to develop a really strong, educational curriculum, strong mentorship matches, really unique recognition opportunities at conferences, panels, and on social media. The MedTech Innovator brand, I'm sure many of you understand by now, is very highly regarded and respected. So being part of our cohort and being showcased in that capacity is a powerful benefit on its own. The community aspect. So we're putting together pods of like-minded CEOs. I'm in Boston, and here we've got a lot of biotech therapeutics companies. And so it can be really hard to find other medtech founders specifically. And so really what I love about the MTI community is bringing together these founders that are going through similar challenges in fundraising, similar challenges in, manufacturing, and other unique things that happen in the med tech space. And so being part of that and leaning on each other is a really strong thing that the companies get out of the program. There's other resources we offer as well. So we recently launched a unique innovator portal system where you can post your open round information for investors to see. We also have access to PitchBook for different market research analytics and a variety of very excellent fellows as well that work with us, graduate students that can help you with different milestones. And then finally is funding. And this is, usually what gets people interested is they see the dollar signs. And we do give out more than 800,000 in funding to our companies. But beyond that, really the connections to investors and things like that to propel you forward is powerful as well. And so Satya, maybe hear from you a bit about, some of these resources that we didn't talk about yet that you guys really loved as part of the program.
Yeah, I think community is the biggest thing, right? So we have like a rich community of people who have been there, done this, and they have a lot of companies and entrepreneurs who are there have been phenomenal and helped us out a lot. And I think although like there's a certain number of people who get like awards from this, which is a great thing, but I would say there's a lot of companies who were part of this and then they got out more in terms of dollar value than actual awards, right? So for us, definitely mentorship was another huge thing. Like two of the mentors that we had as a part of the program were phenomenal, and the recognition, right? I think it's a huge thing. Probably I applied like 5 or 6 times before I actually got into the program. So you can imagine it's very competitive, which also means like you get great exposure. I would say it's more like better than like a Y Combinator for healthcare, I would say, especially MedTech Innovator. The kind of people, the resources that we have is phenomenal. And for us, we were able to leverage a lot of things, especially like in 2020 when we were a part of it. We applied to the FDA. We did a CE mark audit. We had like ISO audit. We had an MD-SAP audit. We pretty much did a lot of things in the same year, and we were fortunate to have like for any questions that I had, like I had somebody within the MedTech Innovator ecosystem who was available to answer, which was phenomenal. It was kind of a free resource. I don't think if not for the network, I would have probably spent like another $50,000-$60,000 on just getting some quick answers. So I would say it's going to be competitive. So make sure you guys put in your best application forward. But all these different resources were phenomenal for us.
Thanks, Satya. Ellington, what about you? Anything else you want to add on resources?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's funny. We applied also 3 times and then we got in. So just keep going. Don't give up. You can do it. You learn every time where you can improve. So I love that the alum, we have those battle scars. And let's see, I think that just to highlight it again, it goes back to community. I mean, like in my separate alum WhatsApp group, we closed 3 rounds for other companies just by sharing investors. So I loved what you said, Nicole, kind of referencing Paul Grand's concept of like, this is like the Harvard Business School, or Stanford Business School. It's the B school of the startup community, where you really build that alumni network that in time can also become partnerships or just really facilitate introductions and put you in rooms that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have been in. So I really think that's it. There is the tangible, and then there's just the connection that I think really is invaluable.
I want to jump on this for a second here, Ellington, to both what you were saying, Satya and Ellington. I think over the years, we also at MedTech Innovator, we make it a goal for us to facilitate these relationships even more, make sure that people are making these connections, having the opportunities to make this connection. We know you all run companies and have to deal with, all the mentorship, all the things that we do in the program. It's a busy time, but we make it our mission to facilitate these relationships, either through leadership pods, either through the Innovator Summit, where we bring also the alumni to interact with our new cohorts. So lots of ways to facilitate these interactions, because we know and we hear day in, day out how much this is the one of the most important resources, not the only one, obviously, but one of the most important resources, and we'll continue to facilitate this in a structured and unstructured way. So thank you for adding that perspective here, both of you.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. And I'm glad you shared your journeys of applying multiple times. And we actually got a question on LinkedIn, and we're going to launch into our Q&A soon. So if you have questions, please start to put those in the chat box. But someone, asked for advice for those that applied and previously were not accepted into the program. Are there strategies to showcase improvements or growth? I would say for sure, talk about the updated milestones and really talking about all these resources. We want companies involved that are going to be surrounded by all these resources and just be like a kid in a candy store and utilizing them all. We don't want to accept companies that, are just going to slap, a logo on a slide, say they were in MedTech Innovator, and then sit off on the sidelines the rest of the program. And so I think one really good piece of advice I have is to make sure to look into our partners and our relationships that we have, and explain in your application what your milestones are and how it relates to the resources that these partners could provide and the other programming that we offer. Satya, Ellington, you guys have any other tips and tricks on that before we move to the last part and open up the Q&A?
I think definitely highlighting the milestones, right, from previous years, and ensuring that, like, it's not, as you said, it's not about just like joining in and then not committing. Like, I also want every company to reevaluate, are they really want to commit the time, because what you put in is what you get out of this program. So specifically, even talking to other mentors and other entrepreneurs who applied to the program or like was part of the program to get their feedback on it would be very helpful before putting together the application. It's very specific, and I hope like people start looking into it as this cohort is very unique. So what we should really want to is talk to more entrepreneurs or alumni. They would give you more insights.
Great advice. Awesome. Ellington, what advice
I
do you have?
I think that in your application, you kind of want to make it clear, and this is what we learned, that like day one, these are the partners that we would want to work with. Day one, this is our strategy. We work so hard in developing strategies for our companies, and I think that you can apply a lot of that exercise into anything that you're getting ready to dedicate, 3 months, 6 months, a year of your life to. You have to be really cognizant of what am I getting out of it and why? Because we can all hear all these great things that Nicole just shared, but how does it directly apply in terms of impact to your company? And what are you prepared for or to do day one to make the best of the experience? And if you can articulate that in your application, I think that it makes it a lot easier for whoever's reviewing to see that you're a natural fit for the environment.
And I'll add one more thing, from the perspective of MedTech Innovator and our partners and ecosystem, the people that are looking at the applications, right? Year over year, when we look at your applications, and especially with repeat applications, yes, obviously the milestones are very important to see progress, to see that the company is positioned well to take advantage of the resources that we offer through the program. But one of the things that I want to highlight is the coachability of our companies in the program, right? This is a key thing that we look at. Have you listened to the feedback, even if you were not selected, but you pitched and you got an invaluable amount of feedback during the pitch event? These are experts in the ecosystem that, as Satya, you mentioned, you would have paid, I don't know how much, but we didn't quantify it, but you would have paid a lot of money to be receiving that kind of feedback if it wasn't for that event, right? And so one of the important thing is the ability to take in that feedback and implement it year over year, right? And when we see a company that really does take in the feedback and integrate that that into the roadmap, integrate that into how they're thinking about their regulatory strategy, their reimbursement strategy, even to their product development, right? Or their business model. That to us really does help with evaluating the ability of that founder to take the company to the next stage. So that's something to remember. And I like that you said, Ellington, don't be discouraged. Continue to apply. Just the ability to receive feedback from so many people in the ecosystem is in and of itself of value. But hopefully, even if you didn't make it in the first year, you will later because you were able to implement that feedback.
Violet. And great transition into, we've heard all of the tens of thousands of dollars, unquantifiable resources that you receive, and also advice that you receive in this process. Now, the question we get frequently is, what does it cost you all? The answer is $0. There's no program admission fee. There's no equity that we take in your company. We're generously supported by our partners. But what you will have to commit, first of all, is time. So we expect each company to commit at least one person to participate in the program. You heard from Ellington, it was really two of them, her and her CBO, that participated. I would say on average, probably like 3 to 5 hours a week between mentor meetings, webinars, workshops, things like that. And then travel, of course, to those 3 in-person pitch events. So keep that in mind, but really a great value overall, if just time and travel and what you get out of it. What to expect from here. So last year we got about 1,300 applications. So again, don't be discouraged. And if you're applying for your second, third, or beyond year, definitely take that advice. We'll ultimately select about 200 companies to pitch at our pitch events, leading to a cohort of about 65 companies. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, we'll split these companies into early and mid stage. So if you're like, I think I'm too far along for MedTech Innovator, you're probably not. We had a company this year that I think has raised around $100 million. So I'll be impressed if we get a few apply that can top that this year. We have competitions for non-dilutive funding that are specific to the track you're in. So if you're very early stage, don't worry, you won't be competing against those $100 million companies at this time. This is just some basic requirements. So again, like early to mid stage startups, we call them startups, but really more like companies. A lot of our companies are actually revenue generating, sometimes revenue positive as well, that make it in. And really, especially our European companies want the program resources for the US market access and expanding their market. You should be incorporated by the time the program starts and have your runway to execute on current milestones. This is whatever it's defined to you as your runway. We have some companies that are still sort of branching out of academia on grants and things like that. But we really just don't want companies that are gonna close down in the middle of the program. So as long as you can show that you are demonstrated to moving forward over the next year and have things you can accomplish. Again, you have to commit at least one team member to be an active part of the program. And you can be, anywhere from pre-seed to Series C funding. For MTI, we don't have a cap on this. If you do decide to apply to BTI, they do have an equity max cap on that just because of some funding sources. But for MTI, we don't have a cap. So again, I feel like you're all eligible from that perspective. Applications are now open. You should all have hopefully already started your application. If not, please start it today. Again, we'll keep you in the loop with updates once we have your information in the system, and you can continuously update your application anytime up until that deadline. With that, we'll have some more info sessions coming up in January as well if you have more questions. And now I want to transition to our Q&A. So thank you so much to Steph, Martha, Ellington, and Satya for joining us today. Hopefully some of these questions we can pull from your knowledge, but really appreciate all of the insight you've all shared so far. So I'm going to start with the top. We've only got, about 5 minutes now to get through some of these, but we'll stay on. And if there's any we don't get to at the end, I will also send you a recording if you have to hop off. Someone asked if there's any sample scripts or outlines for the pitch event. I think this is really up to you and how you want to craft your script. Usually we'll recommend about 5 minutes of formal content to leave as much as possible for open Q&A. Isla, anything you want to add on that end?
Yeah, absolutely. No script on our end, but obviously you want to make sure you present the problem, the solution, and then not get too technical. The idea with those 5 minutes where you are pitching formally, again, it's not a pitch on stage. It's more to a group of judges. The idea is a teaser, right? You want to provide enough information about why you're doing this, what are you doing, and who are you doing this for? Who are the stakeholders, right? And who cares about this and who's going to pay for this within this very short time, so that to get people to ask questions, right? So that's just opening the door for people to ask questions and for you to be able to provide these answers. So the idea is not a pitch that's all inclusive, that's 5 minutes. All you need to do is make it interesting enough for people to have a conversation with you. So that is the idea. That's what most of our successful pitchers do. Where I've seen people fail is trying to cram everything into those 5 minutes and use the entire 20 minutes of your round to pitch instead of allow judges to ask questions, because that is not the goal of the pitch event. That is not the goal of this conversation. And by doing that, yes, you're providing more information, but you are missing the opportunity to learn from the feedback that you're receiving and from the questions that you're getting. So that would be my best advice for you.
Yeah, great advice and good question as well. We got one touched upon the stages of the companies. Can you elaborate if companies in pre-seed, seed, and has not yet raised funding, are they still eligible? Yes, we have a few companies in our cohort this year that haven't formally raised a pre-seed seed round. And one cohort company from last year just raised their seed round that I just heard of. So you're definitely still eligible. Again, it's really just about like, can you accomplish these milestones in the meantime without, those rounds? Are you, bootstrapping? Do you have other, means of support? We see this a lot with our physician and surgeon founders. Often their venture is sort of like a side endeavor for them and some of the academics as well. So for them, they haven't formally raised a round yet because they're bootstrapping this on the side. So yes, you're still eligible. If patented already, does it present an advantage or disadvantage? Definitely an advantage. There's a whole section in the application to talk about your IP portfolio. As I mentioned, those two aspects, technology and patient health impact, are so important, and the technology piece of that really is key. So outline every patent that you have issued, granted, pending, and what you may be pursuing in the future as well. If you're a social impact company, does that matter? I would say it only helps to have social impact in your mission. We're all here trying to improve patient health. And if there's, other ways that are intersectional with social impact that you can do so, we definitely appreciate that. We've got a question from Alberto. I can see on the website it's either Innovator US or APAC program. My startup is based in the Netherlands. Can I apply? Excellent question. Yes, apply to we call it the US program, but really that's just because most of our mentors and partners are based here in the US, and so can help the most with those US market access pieces. But each year, about a third of our companies are based internationally, many of those in Europe, and we have an entire international pitch event because of that. So yes, definitely apply, and there's a lot you will get out of it.
And this too, to add to this, really the idea is the market focus, right? So if you're a European company and you're selling in Europe or planning to sell in Europe, but looking at US market later on, right? If this is your focus, where most of our companies are, that's the idea. You do not need to be based anywhere specifically in the world. We're agnostic to geography. You can be based anywhere. The distinction with the Asia Pacific program, really what we see there, mostly you're either based in Asia Pacific and operates there, or interested in entering the market in Asia Pacific, or have a strategic focus, any strategic focus in one of the Asia Pacific markets. So that is why, because there are things that are unique to that market, and that is why we recommend people with that market focus to be in this program and enjoy the resources that are unique to this market. Everything else is in the main program, which is the MedTech Innovator program.
Great additions. And if you are based in APAC, or maybe you're based in the US, and you want to go into APAC, definitely consider that program. I know we're getting up on 1 o'clock. I'm using Eastern now because most of us here are in Eastern, or 10 a.m. Pacific. If you need to hop off, we're going to stick on for probably 10 more minutes for Q&A. Any of our speakers, if you need to hop off, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciated hearing your insight today, and really looking forward to seeing you all in Maryland. But if you guys can stick on, let's keep working through these great questions. So we've got anonymous attendee, which says, it seems there's a lot of emphasis on the medical devices. What about digital health? Would companies which have platforms that focus on improving patients' outcome, funding, and equitable health be eligible for the program? I would say the number one thing to consider there is really just that technology piece. So if you have a proprietary, algorithm that you're using to analyze patient data, to work on like biometric analysis for patients, things like that, that is definitely a great fit. If it's more of like a portal platform for connecting folks, might not be as great of a fit, but some of our partners could still be interested. So I would encourage you to still apply and see what feedback you get. As I mentioned, really like intangibly beneficial feedback you'll get during the process as well. So, even if you hear, you're not a great fit, you'll still get some feedback on your business model and things like that. But overall, I would say probably about a third of our companies are in the digital health space, at least this year. So definitely precedent for that. And we have consumer wellness companies as well. So one of our very successful cohort companies this year is a company called Oslo, which is creating sleep buds to help patients sleep, help people sleep, and are now branching into tinnitus indications. But their bread and butter is this consumer wellness space. So I'd love to hear more, but shoot me an email about specifically what you're working on, and maybe I can give you some advice there. We've got Aaron asking a spinoff. Their spinoff is developing medical devices for tissue regeneration. They're planning to incorporate in February after the deadline. This shouldn't be an issue for the application itself. As we mentioned, by the start of the program, which is June, hopefully you'll be incorporated, just because there are some forms you'll have to sign as part of the program. So you'll have to, be able to sign those from the company's perspective. But it sounds like your timeline is right in line with that in February. So definitely just note that in the application, and that's one of your milestones is incorporation. Nicole, another Nicole asked if I have one-on-one meetings. If you have specific questions, I'm always available. My email is nicole@medtechinnovator.org. I'm sure a lot of you are here because you received an email from me this week, so you already got my email. Hopefully, most of your questions have been answered through the info session or online, but if you have specific questions, I'm definitely happy to answer those. Ruth asked, can you speak a bit more to the cadence of the communication and what will be covered with mentors over and during the program? We have found previous accelerators heavily focused on investment readiness and acquiring investment dollars. How central is it for this program? How do other important milestones factor in? I would say, investment is it's a component of the program, but definitely not the focus. Our focus is bringing products out into the world. So most of our mentor matches that we implement are more around drafting clinical study plans, market access plans. We have an incredible value program where you'll talk with value coaches and facilitators about reimbursement, CPT codes, healthcare economics of your product. So really good question. It's not central, but we do have a vast network of investors. It was actually the MedTech Innovator was spun out from a venture capital firm called RCT by our CEO, Paul Grand, who's very well connected in the investment space. And even beyond the program, we offer connections and showcase opportunities to investors for you. But again, most of our mentorship and curriculum is not focused on investment. We will have 1 out of our 13 webinars focused on raising money usually each year, but again, that's only, less than 10% of the educational content. But we do, I think one of our most popular ones this year was around term sheets, so indirectly related to investment. So how do you structure a term sheet, and really what can you negotiate in it as well? So that's a really popular part of our program. Sybil asked main differences between MedTech and BioTools Innovator. Can we apply to both? You can definitely apply to both. I would say the main difference is who your customer is. So for MedTech, your customer is generally going to be, a hospital or, the patient directly in the case of consumer products. For BioTools Innovator, these tend to be more B2B products. So your customer is going to be like a lab system, either maybe the hospital lab, an academic lab, or another life science company that's going to use your technology. So this is popular amongst a lot of diagnostics companies that are not patient facing. So if it's a diagnostic where it's like, a wearable device or something like that, definitely MTI, or if the patient's going to be using the diagnostic device, MTI. If it's going to be, processed in a hospital lab, probably BioTools Innovator. If it's, new imaging technology, microscopy technology, things like that, BTI. But you can apply to both, and we will determine which is the best fit for you during the process. And we keep a close eye on companies that have applied to both. And so you'll be in the radar of two teams. So definitely encourage you to apply to both if you think you could be eligible for both. We see this a lot with platform tech companies where, for example, they have like a material that could be used for a lot of different applications, could be sold to other life science companies, but has a primary medical indication that they're addressing first. So that I think is where we see a lot of overlap. Important criteria for acceptance into the program. So we're going to be inviting 200 companies to our pitch events, and this is really, where it's going to be decided who makes it in. So forming close relationships at this pitch event and demonstrating the value of your product that you're going to be getting a lot out of the program, for example, are the top criteria, I would say. So really, what are your milestones, and can we help you accomplish them, in short? So we don't have hard and fast criteria. I would say like a lot of times our cohort ends up being comprised in similar clinical areas as our partners, just because our partners play such a heavy role in our selection process. But we often, accept a lot of companies that aren't great perfect fits for those partners' interests as well, but can benefit in other ways. So definitely, again, look into the partners that we have and describe in your application, who you might like to work with, or what resources you could get out of the program. Thanks, Ganga. Madalena asked, what is the weekly, monthly time commitment expected from founders? I imagine is mentor specific, but generally how much time do they spend in the program? As I said earlier, I think, probably like 3 to 5, 4 to 6-ish hours a week. You can expect to commit just between all of the resources that we provide. It's really a sort of, choose your own adventure. We have some companies that probably spend, 20 to 40 hours in the program, because they really focus on using their mentoring relationships to propel their milestones forward, and lump their current milestones to what they're doing at MTI very closely. Some that spend fewer, especially, maybe our mid-stage companies already have a lot of their milestones rolling. And so what they're utilizing the program for is, more one-off specific advice, the network community, the exposure opportunities and things like that. But I would say on average, probably around 5 hours a week. We've got Loic Van Horn asked, is there an advantage or disadvantage if we were developing devices which are competitive to products which the partners already offer? I would actually say this is an advantage. We see this a lot with our partners, where they gravitate toward technologies that they're familiar with, that they know, their organization is interested in. So like, Olympus, for example, will often select a lot of our GI companies and urology companies to mentor. And, they've made a lot of moves in those spaces recently with acquisitions and things like that. But if you have a unique technology that, could one day become part of their portfolio, it's always good to, be friends rather than distant, so to say. So, they say keep your enemies close. I would say they're not your enemies, they're your friends, they're your partners, and they really want to impact patient healthcare. So I would say it's only helpful if they are in this space, and I think definitely gives you a leg up in the application process. Hema says, what specific qualities of the companies have won grand prizes in previous cohorts? So that's a really good question. Varied. We've had so many different companies from different segments of the world. Our grand prize winner this year was Samai, which is developing a respiratory diagnostic device. They're actually co-based in Colombia, in Latin America, and also in California. And I would say one thing really notable about Maria is her tenacity with, finding non-dilutive grants. She is a great leader in recognizing outside opportunities to propel their technology forward. Just a fantastic human overall who was really engaged in the cohort during the course of the program, forming strong connections. So I would say, most of our winners are just, they're just great people. Really, not just from the technology and, great leaders for their companies, but for the ecosystem in general for MedTech. And so I would say that's what they have in common. But beyond that, wide diversity, we've had, diagnostics companies, platform technology companies, traditional devices, all win our prizes through the program. And I think with that, Sue, I see you. Hi, Sue. I'm glad you were able to attend. And Sue was at our pitch event last year in DC. So super excited that Car Tech is applying again this year. Thank you all so much for attending. I will end it there and we will send you guys a recording if you're still around. Thank you for sticking around. Really appreciate it. And